Hi boys and girls, this is Allison. Welcome back to day 2 of FCA Camp Online 2020. So today we're going to talk about 100% of self and surrender. So the verse today comes from Galatians 2:20. The verse is, "My old self has been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. So I live in this earthly body by trusting in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me." Wow. In the last meeting, we talked about how God gave us 100% by sending his Son, Jesus Christ, to live a perfect life and gave up that life as a sacrifice for our sins. Although it's not an equal comparison, we discussed the similarities between God's commitment to us and our commitment to athletics. But it doesn't end with sacrifice. For both the athlete and the follower of Christ, that's just the beginning. The next step is surrender. In order for the athlete to succeed, he or she must submit to the coach's plan. It's the coach, after all, whose job is to help the athlete become the best they can be, right? So for the follower of Christ, on the other hand, he or she must surrender personal wants and desires and submit to God's perfect plan and purpose for his or her life. But it's not just a one-time thing. It's a daily choice to trust those in authority over you and those who have your best interests in mind. It's all about 100% surrender to self. And a perfect verse for this is Matthew 16:24. It says, "Then Jesus said to his disciples, 'Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me.'" So let's talk about the lowliest servant. When Jesus walked the earth, he showed us what it would look like to be a servant leader. He was a compassionate teacher who took care of people's most basic needs. Jesus fed the masses in Matthew 14:13-21. He also healed the sick. See Matthew 8:1-15. He delivered the possessed in Matthew 8:16. And he protected his disciples from harm, Matthew 8:23-27. But in one instance, he took that concept of serving others to a level that even stunned his closest followers. In John 13, the story begins during the celebratory Passover supper as Jesus draws closer to his death. Now this verse is quoted from John 13:4-5. It says, "So he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around him." Wow, that was typically an act that only the lowliest servant would perform. And yet, here was Jesus, the Son of God, going above and beyond what anyone might expect from such a revered spiritual leader. In that moment, he was able to teach his disciples a very valuable lesson. No one is too important to serve. Years later, the Apostle Paul echoed Jesus' sentiment in a letter to some of the early Christians. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. And that's what Paul said in Philippians 2:3-4. So I have a couple questions for you. Take out your pen and paper if you have them ready. The first question is, why do you think it's so surprising to see important leaders performing selfless acts of serving? The second question is, do you personally find it easy or difficult to serve others who are seen as less important in our society? Just remember, we give God 100% by surrendering our lives. God bless, and hope to see you tomorrow for day 3 of camp.